What's up, Nathan? How you doing?
Not much. I totally missed the intro. We didn't even get that part.
Hey, I was working up to it, just doing it a little different way this time. So,
You're good.
hey, I'm Russ Fritz.
And I'm Nathan Johns.
Join us while we're
Switching Grooves.
so, man, a big weekend NASCAR and a big weekend for the World of Outlaws this week.
I'm
So,
not gonna lie, I was kind of surprised by all the headlines I saw this week. Throughout my work week, we've got more blockbuster news trades than you know the Super Bowl commercials.
it's crazy.
Definitely a bizarre week.
Hey,
So,
my phone just froze. There it is.
oh no.
So, man, oh man.
So what do we got
Uh,
going on in dirt this week?
nothing a whole lot. Just a pretty big weekend for David Gravel, actually. So,
Let's hear about it.
all right. Well, I'll get started, I guess. So, hey, does that taste good or what?
It is good. Sorry, I need a little caffeine to get through the night.
it's all good, man. Oh, let me pull up my text here, and
I have to show off my official Chase Elliott drink as it's now hidden. There we go. My official Chase.
Chase Elliott
There we
drink.
go.
So, David Gravel and the Big Game Motorsports team put in a tremendous effort to secure the 2024 World of Outlaws Sprint Car title, and that was actually a goal that slipped their grasp for like 3 seasons, and all the while by just nipping at Brad Sweet's heels for the last 3 years, and just couldn't get it done. And not saying that anything bad about Gravel, but now that Sweet's gone, obviously Gravel's the top seed in the World of Outlaws. So doing a great job defending this title so far this year. And now that they actually have achieved the goal, they're actually determined to keep pushing forward, and they're actually aiming for multiple titles, obviously, rather than just taking home one and done, which is probably the goal of everybody out there racing. But winning races is the most effective way to actually claim a championship. But that's actually what they accomplished this week at Volusia. On Sunday, Gravel actually showcased a commanding performance and led every single lap of the race from start to finish. So,
Pretty impressive.
great job. Yeah, great job on that. I mean, he had one heck of a lead. And Monday presented a little bit more of a challenge for David Gravel, who is a Watertown, Connecticut native. So you don't hear about too many guys from Connecticut. But,
I don't know. There's one really obnoxious guy that goes, it's short track racing that I know of.
but oh man, I don't know, man. Not a lot of them. I mean, you get a lot of them from California, the Midwest, but Gravel actually started third and briefly fell to fourth on the first lap, and that didn't deter him though. He actually is steadily maneuvered around Cody Jacobs, or maneuvered the. I got lost in my notes here. I apologize. David Gravel steadily maneuvered the Cody Jacobs prepared number 2 back into contention, reclaiming third by lap 5, and actually advanced to second by lap 10, seizing the lead from Gio Scelzi on lap 15. And from there, he extended his advantage, navigated through heavy traffic, and crossed the finish line with a nearly 2-second lead, completing a sweep at the Bike Week Jamboree. So it's 2 seconds. That's actually pretty good on a dirt track. A lot of people don't realize that. Gravel stated that their confidence has been high, and it's been high all off season, but it was especially elevated after Dirt Car Nationals. Sweeping the weekend feels amazing, and now we're heading to various tracks of different sizes, and some we haven't visited very often. It's going to be unpredictable, and every night will be a challenge. and those aren't his exact words, but those are my words, kind of paraphrased. And the victory was actually particularly meaningful for Gravel, marking his second consecutive win and bringing his career total to a record high 105 for him, tying him. That actually ties him with Joey Saldana for 7th place on the all-time win list. It also marked his 7th World of Outlaws win of Volusia, tying him with Brad Sweet for the second most in history. Track history, that is. Gravel actually established a significant 44-point lead over Logan Schuchart early in the season as he claims to defend his title, let's put it that way. And together with Todd Curing's team, they're actually determined to create an unforgettable series of sprint car races, and their performance so far suggests on track to do so. With 2 victories, 5 podium finishes, and an average finish of 2.33 across 6 races, so far they're actually making a strong statement. And Gravel said they're actually trying to build a points lead early, so they have a little bit of a cushion in there. And that he was actually really looking forward to the season. So, what else did he say? I'm trying to. Oh, and he actually said he believes it'll be something special this year. So, good for him, and I'm glad to see that he's very confident in trying to keep his title. As the race actually neared its conclusion, the battle for second actually intensified, and Logan Schuchart ultimately secured the position over Gio Scelzi and Carson Macedo, and that actually marked the 3rd podium for Schuchart and the Shark Racing team this year, matching their total from the entire 2024 season. Crazy. I mean, a team kind of struggled last year, so good for him. Glad to see them back on top too. And they entered the season ready to bounce back, and the results reflect the commitment so far. So glad to see that. Schuchart said he felt really good, and he had an exciting race with Gio and Carson, and felt like he was closing on David Gravel there at the end, but he just ran out of time. So he's happy with the team's performance, according to statements, and he said they learned a lot in Florida to kick off the year. So great to see that team building their confidence back up and getting back on top. Scelzi actually led the first 14 laps in the KCP Racing number 18 and dropped 3rd. Although he was disappointed to see a potential win slip away, he remains optimistic, celebrating his first podium of the season after facing challenges last month at the world's fastest half mile. He said he noticed the track getting increasingly dirty in turns 1 and 2, especially in the center, which actually shows that the bottom is actually pushing up towards the middle. And that he really didn't venture down there until he found himself behind David in traffic. So sometimes you got to go where you got to go and get away from traffic. So kind of tough, but I'm not a sprint car driver, so I'll take his word for it. This is actually a significant improvement from the Dirt Car Nationals to now. Is another statement from Scelzi, and he's proud of what they have accomplished. And he says it's going to be a long year, but Charlotte actually comes up quickly and creeps up on you. So that'll be crazy. Carson Macedo, Jacob Allard rounded out the top 5, and that's kind of it. I mean, it wasn't a super battle, and it wasn't really a lot of back and forth. I mean, once Gravel got out front, it was over. Chris Windham actually drove the Sides Motorsports 7S from 22nd to 10th, which
impressive.
Yeah, that actually earned him the KSE Racing Hard Charger Award. Gravel secured his 2nd consecutive Simpson Quick Time and the 124th of his career. A great achievement for Honest Abe Roofing qualifying. And Gravel, Schoenberg, Allen actually won the NOS Energy Drink Heats 1, 2, and 4, while Macedo actually took Heat 3, which were all sponsored by Wix Filters, or which was sponsored by Wix Filters. The other 3 were NOS Energy Drink. My bad. Selzy actually won the Dash, and Anthony Macri won the Last Chance Showdown to make it into the feature. So Creed Kemenol received the Titanium Brake Systems Brake of the Race Award. And coming up this weekend, the World of Outlaws are at Talladega Short Track. That's where they're going. Ooh. East of Boga, Alabama, Talladega Short Track.
I hear that is right across the field from the actual Talladega Superspeedway.
So they go to Talladega Short Track in Alabama tomorrow night, and Columbus, Missouri to Magnolia Motor Speedway Saturday night. So
that'll be interesting.
Other than that, I don't have a lot. I mean, that was pretty much it.
I'm actually kind of surprised how fast the season's coming up on us. It's kind of nice to have dirt racing back, but it does not feel like it's about to be race season next month for us here. It's crazy.
Now, Port Royal was supposed to open this weekend, but they've already canceled due to the saturated grounds.
It's
and the weekend. Yeah, the weekend forecasts, according to their website, the grounds are saturated and the forecast isn't looking very good. So they went ahead and canceled their opener this weekend. Kind of sad to see that. I was looking forward to watching that on Dirt Vision, but gotta do what you gotta do sometimes.
Oh yeah.
So what do you got, Nathan? What do you got for NASCAR? I know
I've got all kinds of excitement this week. I mean, just some of the headlines we're going to cover. Chase Briscoe's penalty from Daytona is rescinded. So he's got his 100 points back. He went from essentially dead last to now he's back inside a playoff spot in 15th. Some of the more bizarre moments that you don't expect now anymore. The Batmobile on the 5 car has lost a wheel. I wonder if the Joker got away. They suspended the Jackman and the front tire changer on the 5 car. I forget the names off the top of my head, but they are suspended, I believe, for 2 weeks. And because Kyle lost a tire on the track, he was docked 2 laps. So they made him sit for 2 laps.
Wow!
So that actually ended him up 32nd. On
2
Sunday.
laps.
It's bizarre to me that of all the Hendrick cars that were out there, that was the one you expected to be most consistent, and he was dead last.
2 laps at a short track is like an eternity.
No, it was a super speed. It was a road course.
Or a road course. I don't know why I said short track. I'm thinking of dirt. But yeah, two laps at a road course is like an eternity. And could you imagine if they were actually racing the extended track?
The craziest
part the extended course. Man.
Kyle holds the track record at this configuration right now. As it stands online, he ran a 1 minute 39.244 second lap on this version of the course. Apparently he ran that Sunday. I don't know when, but at some point during the weekend, he ran that lap, which is the fastest recorded lap of that race. So even though he finished 32nd, he still got the fastest lap award, which makes literally no sense to me. Or at least it's what it says online. I don't know if that was just for the race that he set that, or if that was over the course of the weekend and the actual race. I think the fastest lap actually went to Christopher Bell, but apparently Kyle had a faster lap during the practice or qualifying, from what I understand.
So back to the Briscoe penalty. That was interesting to me because you don't know if they did it.
They apparently appealed it, which, as anybody who's seen the NASCAR appeals record, NASCAR is what? Technically, I believe they're like 8-0, because every single team that has appealed the penalty hasn't necessarily won. There's been one team that they got the penalty. I'm going to call it edited, and it was Hendrick Motorsports with Louvergate. That's
Yeah.
the only team that is semi. I'm going to call it semi because they really didn't win their appeal. They just got the consequences changed.
That was strange
That
to me
was the
because that,
only penalty that was
yeah, and
semi
that
reversed.
was,
This is the first penalty I've seen that was officially reversed fully, where the points were given back and there was no editing of the penalty. They reversed the call, which is actually kind of interesting to me.
no, see,
That
that's not a first for me, but I've obviously been watching NASCAR a lot longer than you have.
no, I mean with the new
Oh, you mean the
appeals.
new car?
Yes,
Oh, okay. I was gonna
this is
say
the
it's
first time with the new car that the penalty has been officially reversed, not semi-reversed like they did with Hendrick
yeah.
Motorsports.
The
It is
one with
officially
Henrik,
been, reversed.
the one with Henrik was actually a first time for me seeing anything like that being just changed around a little bit. That was kind of odd. It was either win or lose,
Yeah.
before that. But here is the statement from the appeals panel. The ruling stated that the elongation of some of the holes on the number 19 Cup car spoiler base is caused by the process of attaching that specific spoiler base to the rear deck and not modification of the single source part. So in simple terms, NASCAR saw something odd and assumed it was tampering, and in reality, it was just a quirk of the assembly process. And just like that, everything was reversed. And I got that from Forbes.com, so I can't take credit for any of that. But
Now here is one penalty, since we're on the topic of penalties, that I'm gonna say is borderline with the way NASCAR handled it. We got one penalty reversed, and we got one penalty that I'm gonna call it was, for lack of better terms, half-assed. As everybody has seen, Bubba Wallace dumped Kyle Larson at Vegas, 2 years ago. They essentially call it right rearing, where he hooked him, put him in the outside wall, and ended up taking out Christopher Bell. Fast forward to, what was it, last year or 2023, Denny Hamlin got hooked by Chase Elliott coming off turn 4 at Charlotte. Ended up both the races. Chase got suspended for 2 weeks after he had got hurt. So, another slap on the wrist. And then we get to later on in the season, I believe it was last year, Carson Hocevar dumps Harrison Burton under caution. Gets a pretty massive penalty and a fine. Now we fast forward to this past weekend at COTA. Austin Cindric is starting dead last, had a horrible qualifying effort, and is coming through the field, and a battle for 30th turns into a, right hook gone wrong, spins Ty Dillon into essentially the outside wall, doesn't draw caution. Excuse me, so no real penalty there.
and this was on a restart.
No, it was actually not during a restart. It was during the race. The restart had been prior. They were under green flag conditions. It wasn't coming to the green. This was just coming off turn 20. To an extent, I can understand the initial move that, Austin Cindric, Ty Dillon essentially put him out in the grass. But here's where he went wrong. Instead of just getting back onto the track, he got back onto the track and then just turned left and hooked Ty Dillon. I can understand why he was mad, but that is overdoing it. That's overkill, in my opinion. Unfortunately, all they did was give a massive points penalty and a fine. There was no suspension involved, and this is where I feel is a little controversial. It was under green flag conditions, which, unlike Carson Hocevar's, his was under yellow. Austin Cindric's was in green flag conditions. From what I am understanding, the reason they did not suspend Austin Cindric is because it did not draw caution. as Bubba Wallace and Kyle Larson drew a caution. Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin drew a caution. This one didn't draw a caution, so it kind of falls under the category of Carson Hocevar and Harrison Burton. You and I had the conversation about it where they weren't going as fast on road courses, and I did the average based on Kyle Larson's lap, and it's about 87 miles an hour you're averaging around that track. Now, that could be more, that could be less in that straightaway. In the span that happened in, they were getting up to speed. So I'm going to have to say that it was probably over 87 miles an hour when that contact happened. So the fact that it was slower speeds because of the road course, I don't quite buy that. I'm not nothing against you. I saw somebody else say that also. I don't think that is an accurate way of going at it because you're still under green flag conditions. You're still carrying speed. If you right hook somebody in general, if it's a malicious act like we saw with Bubba Wallace and Larson, with Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott, with Austin Cindric and Ty Dillon, I qualify that as the same level as the first two. I don't think that is quite as nonchalant as the Harrison Burton and Carson Hocevar. I think that penalty deserved the crime fit the penalty. This one I feel was more of a slap on the wrist. Now, given the fact that if they had suspended him, he would not be eligible for a playoff waiver. That's where they make this interesting.
I'm sorry, but
I think he should have got suspended for that.
absolutely.
And that's what happens. If you can't do the time, don't do the crime, as they say. Don't do stupid stuff like that.
This is where NASCAR went wrong when they changed their policies about suspensions and waivers and everything else, is they didn't completely think about it when they were actually coming up with a new set of rules. And I'm sorry, but you right hook somebody like that, you get suspended. I mean, Kyle, I actually listened to a interview that Kyle Busch did with Larry McReynolds over this very topic, and Kyle Busch even said himself, the intention was there, so therefore it was done on purpose, and he should be suspended. I mean, rules are rules, and you got to follow them. But no, NASCAR, again, is consistently inconsistent with everything they do, just like they have been all year so far. So
I will say, on the topic of consistency, the NASCAR broadcasts are consistently getting worse. And I don't know if you saw this from the coverage. Now, and maybe somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. When is the last time watching it, say on Dirt Vision or Flow Racing, that we're watching the battle for the lead and the camera goes behind the grandstands? Now, I'm sure out there is a grandstand fanatic out there that would absolutely love to see that view. As a NASCAR fan, Fox should be ashamed of themselves for with the battle for the lead and you're showing us the grandstands. I don't know who's running this Fox broadcast, but there better be some sort of repercussions for this because it's getting really, really bad.
I'm going to tell you what, man, the NBC broadcasting from while they're sitting in Charlotte watching it on monitors and talking about it is better than Fox being live. I mean, this is all on Fox, though. It's not on NASCAR.
And what makes me laugh
it's ridiculous that when something happens while they're on a break, they don't break in anymore like they used to.
They need to. The side-by stuff needs to go away. If you're going to have a commercial break, make it a quick commercial break. And if something happens, boom, you're right back in.
Well,
I
and
honestly don't even care if you cut the commercial short. Time doesn't work that way.
you know what I've noticed is it was kind of hard to tell with Coda being a road course, but on the ovals so far this year, I've noticed it's about every 5 laps they go to a stupid side by side and they play the same ads over and over and over again. Shorten them up. If you're going to do it, it's fine. I like it because you're not really missing anything, but shorten them up a little bit. If you're going to play that many side by sides, then shorten the time frame of that up and play less ads because you're doing it so damn often.
And I'm gonna be brutally honest. I don't like the CW whatsoever because you can't watch. If you're on the go, you can't watch it. But I will say that from the booth with Parker Kligerman and Jeremy McMurray, with the amount of emotion that came out of that broadcast, where you could hear the voices cracking in the mic, they were so excited with the battles. They need to replace Kevin Harvick and Clint Boyer. For example, we go to watch the Cup race, and this is all you hear. Oh, they got another spin in turn 1. No. Would you rather have that kind of excitement? Or would you rather have people screaming and jumping up and down? Put some sort of excitement into your broadcast. With getting so excited that their voices are barely picking up in the mic because they're jumping around so excited.
I'm going to tell you,
I saw a clip also with Clint Boyer where I guess it was at North Wilkesboro where he was talking and said, "Stay with this view." And immediately after that, they changed the camera and you could hear him spike his pen. If that does not scream that this broadcast company does not need to be in NASCAR anymore, I don't know what else does. We have seen this time and time again that Fox, and I don't care if they're watching this or not, Fox, you suck with your broadcast. Fix it or go watch IndyCar. Your IndyCar broadcast, and it was prior to Coda, was better than the Coda broadcast. If you're that into IndyCar, go and leave NASCAR alone and stop ruining the sport because nobody watches the end of the season anymore because it's so bad.
Well, I'm going to tell you, there was even a point at Coda where you could hear Clinton Boyer, let out a sigh, like an annoyed sigh because they screwed up the broadcast while they were talking about it. And honestly, in my opinion, I don't say this because I was a Harvick fan, but I don't think Kevin so much needs to go as much as Boyer needs to go, because when Boyer doesn't really get too excited about it, and if you could get Kevin somebody in the booth that he actually clicks with, like Dale Jr. or something like that, bring Jr. back and bring him to Fox.
Honestly, I kind of like.
I think those two would be great together in the booth.
Well, if I remember correctly, didn't Kevin Harvick and Dale Jr. do a coverage for a Busch race at Sonoma? I think that was the greatest. Back when they had the Hollywood booth, the Hollywood Hotel, where they were messing with Chris Meyer's hairbrush and whatnot, which I thought was the funniest segment out of all of them. Because there's these 2 young kids taking over the booth. Well, at the time, 2 young kids taking over the booth.
I remember that.
I thought that was probably those guys are so good. Like, they get along so well because of the history.
Well, Kevin was actually a really, really big prankster anyways, so.
Exactly. I mean, when he took over Darrell Waltrip's trailer and TP'd it, which I thought was hilarious. See,
Boyer just doesn't have the enthusiasm.
The broadcasts used to be good. Even with rain delays, they were good. Now it's just time filler. There is no fun. There's no entertainment. Rain delays.
No,
the most uncensored or more unscripted fun.
Yeah, you got all the fun. They went around, did interviews. They pulled pranks. Like now they just throw on a race from last year or whatever, and
they had Gregson in a shark head. Back in the Xfinity series, they let Noah walk around in a shark head, which was hilarious. Where do you see it in the Cup Series now? The Xfinity Series has more entertainment in their garage the NASCAR Cup Series as their entire broadcast.
You know,
Let these
they
players
wonder.
have a sense of personality. Let your commentators have a sense of personality. Nothing against Jamie Little. She's a better pit reporter than a commentator for the Truck Series, but at least she was good as a pit reporter. It made it kind of entertaining, had a little bit of a smile, a little bit of laugh here and there. Just some fun. There's
Yeah, I mean,
now it's
NASCAR
serious and it's bad.
NASCAR wonders where their fans are going. Well, they
No
need
one
to
wants
take a
to
look.
watch.
They need to take a look at the companies they hire to broadcast for them. Maybe it's time to start your own broadcast. Don't hire anybody, and have just like the World of Outlaws do with Dirt Vision. They own Dirt Vision and they do their own broadcasting. Maybe it's time NASCAR goes in that direction and let their people just let their personality show. They like Michael Waltrip. I mean, not a big fan of him, but he lets his
Honestly,
personality
that's one thing
show.
needs eliminated from the broadcast. This grid walk, I'm sorry, it needs to go. I think Michael Waltrip is a great guy, or at least for some things. The grid walk is just space filler, and it's really not anything good. It's almost cringeworthy at this point. I mean, the tacos on the back of Denny Hamlin's car. It's
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry, it's so cringeworthy that people almost want to change the channel. I almost want to change the channel. I'm a NASCAR fan, and I want to change the channel when that part comes on because it doesn't do anything. It's almost like Clip Boyer in the booth. It's just a groan. That there's nothing good that comes out of it. No information. It's almost so cheesy that it doesn't belong.
yeah,
It's very frustrating.
it's not entertaining anymore. It's more annoying than anything, to be honest with you. And I got to agree with you on that. But they need to do something to change it up. Like set some precedents for your broadcast companies if you're not going to start your own.
Yes. Before I get too much off on a tangent, I do need to cover the other two stories that I have.
Yeah.
One of them is an ongoing development. NASCAR has now countersued 2311 and Front Row Motorsports, along with Michael Jordan's business partner.
Oh,
I can't think of his name now.
Colton Polk, or
I can't think what it is off the top of my head. But either way,
I forget.
Supposedly, I guess he's the ringleader of all these, claims that NASCAR is making. That I guess he organized a
Boycotts
boycott of the owners' meeting, which I don't quite understand that one. I saw reports of it, but it didn't really see much of anything. I guess he messed with the broadcast agreement, so I don't know about that.
They're claiming that, because I actually just watched a thing on this before I came.
Video, and it's a lot of words. I will say he has that 100% right. It's a lot of terms.
Well, they're claiming that he potentially spoke to or met with some of the broadcast companies to try to persuade them into not taking the deal, and he tried to organize mass boycotts of qualifying and even big events completely with the teams, I should say, and tried to talk them out of signing the charter deals. And to be honest with you, I don't think any teams actually liked the charter deal, because it actually eliminated the charter that they were allowed to own, so they're only allowed 3 now. But I think they signed it because they felt they had no other choice. So, but yeah, they're claiming he did all these things and that he's the one that violated antitrust laws, not them.
Yes, and I want to see where this goes. I'm kind of hoping that it pays dividends, because Front Row Motorsports is in the sport for a while. 2311 has not been around very long. So I'm kind of hoping this just puts an end to all this. For all we know, they'll go out of business, and then we won't have to worry about this ever again. This is
you
kind of
know
why I
that.
wish Denny would drive for his own team, so we could just put it into all this, because it's very frustrating that NASCAR is trying to build their name with the social media part, and it's more tarnished by this than by things that are actually happening in the sport.
The craziest thing
Just
to me
get this
about
over with, it'd
this,
be nice.
but the craziest thing to me about this whole lawsuit is actually now they don't go back to court until December of this year.
I mean, hopefully at that point, the whole letting them run, is now expired. Because if they're just going to do this every year, they're just going to run this out as long as they can. If they grant them, access to rides or let them run again next year like they did this year, it's going to be an ongoing story, and we'll never hear the end of it. If
Well,
you're going to let them run
NASCAR,
this year, don't let them run next year. Simple as that.
from what I understand, NASCAR is talking about if 2311 actually wins this case, they're just going to eliminate the charters altogether. And to be honest with you, it wouldn't bother me a bit, because I like the way that things used to be, and teams had to actually earn their way into each race.
And I agree with the eliminating that part. At the same time, for all the teams that now own $40 million charters, or basically they're just going to go down the drain. That $40 million investment is now worthless.
Well, that's the other part. The other part of this, how I feel that they actually should be reimbursed some sort of reimbursement for that. Obviously, NASCAR will not want to give them each one whatever they paid, because I'm sure they paid different prices.
Yeah.
And at different times.
As far as I know, those were free charters. NASCAR didn't sell them to the teams.
No, they gave them to them.
What I understand, they were in 2016. They were free charters. So somewhere between 2016 and 2025, they somehow have managed to make them $40 million investment. That's where I don't get is, how did you make a free, basically a gift into a $40 million item?
Well, and here's my thing about it. If they're going to keep it around, all that 2311 and Front Row are, and I'm sure other teams feel this way too, especially Richard Childress, with his expressions about how he just signed the charter agreement because he had a lot of employees to worry about, But all they want is for the charters to be theirs permanently, and they can do what they want with, not NASCAR just basically, owning the charters and letting them use them.
Yeah.
And lease them or whatever it is. But essentially in the end, NASCAR actually owns every single charter, and the teams want those to be permanent for themselves, which I don't think is too much to ask, especially since the teams have lost one charter that they're allowed to own. So now they're only allowed 3. So that's not too much. It's got to be give and take here. And NASCAR's just doing all the taking and not giving hardly anything. I mean, the team's got a little bit more of the revenue. Big deal. And they didn't get a significant amount more.
See, but what I read from the paperwork, NASCAR is alleging that 2311 and Front Row Motorsports wanted, I believe it was quoted this way, a bigger piece of the NASCAR pie.
Yeah, which
in other words, they got greedy.
Well,
it isn't a good way to put that. They got greedy and they want more than.
Well, my understanding of them wanting the bigger piece of the pie was, and that's NASCAR's stating, not the teams that are suing NASCAR.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, their vision of a bigger piece of the pie is owning the charters outright. Each team, they are privately owned by them and not NASCAR. And by doing so, because of this new charter agreement, NASCAR is actually allowed to own charters themselves, which was not in the previous agreements over the past, ever since the start of it. And I don't agree with NASCAR being allowed to own charters. I think it's total bull, but it is what it is. So if you're allowed to own charters and you're taking one away from each team that they're allowed to own, give them to them permanently. I don't see an issue with that. Like I said, it's a negotiation. It's not a, here you go, this is all you get. That's not fair. So, I mean, that's just my 2 cents.
I'm trying to pull up the other thing that I also had an input on. One of the other ones that I was a little surprised on. It was kind of nice to see. Connor Zilisch made his NASCAR Cup Series debut this weekend. I'm not gonna lie, he did amazing in the Xfinity Series, and then kind of went in the Cup Series. Qualified 14th in the Cup race, was doing pretty good, and then Daniel Suarez, I'm gonna call it wheel hopped, and he dropped the wheel and spun out, and Connor Zilisch quite literally had nowhere to go. But at the same time, I'm gonna call it pulling a Danica, because he went wide and absolutely drilled Daniel Suarez. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't think anybody could hit that hard on a corner, but he hit him so hard it picked the front of the car up. Thank goodness we weren't at a super speedway, otherwise we'd be talking about Ryan Preece and the catch fence again. But I was kind of surprised how hard he hit him, and then he spun around and landed in the tire barrier backwards, which just shows how hard you hit, because he cleared the gravel trap and was sitting against the tire barrier facing the wrong way in traffic. So that was a pretty massive hit.
Yeah.
One of the bigger issues I saw, other than dropping a wheel, and I think it was like turn 13, was the track limits in the S's. Or
I was just getting ready to go there.
I was a little surprised by last year we had the bigger course. You couldn't leave the track surface. You had to stay
they were
one side of wheels, left side wheels, at least on the left side of, like, on the track surface side of the turtles. What I watched in the final laps of COTA this year was like watching, Mario Kart, shortcuts. They had to be 4 or 5 car widths off the racing surface. They essentially made that the S's.
Some of them were going through the dirt.
Well, not even just that. You take the first 2 S's and then you can essentially straighten up the corner. So you're a good, the cars are 5-6 feet wide, and they're a good 18 feet off the racing surface when they come around the corner to set up the new 6A and 6B. I'm sorry, NASCAR, but if you're going to put a tire barrier in 6A, you better put a tire barrier the entire way around turn 5, because that's not a corner. That's a straightaway across a painted strip of surface.
I mean, you have a race course and a race surface for a reason. Use it.
Yes.
I mean,
I can't figure that one out. And I applaud them. I don't know if they had it last year, but this whole Joker lap thing for if you missed the corner, I thought was a great idea.
Oh yeah, I like that idea.
If you actually had to use it. What I was kind of surprised by is because it's
you're talking about
Joker lap.
You're talking about the stop. I call it the penalty box. You're talking about that?
Yeah, the little loop outside. And
that was actually a really, really, really good idea.
I like it. I don't know if, because of where it is, if you come to a slow enough speed, don't completely stop. But because it goes out around, why stop? Why just, roll through it? You have to stay inside the lines. So you can only carry so much speed. Go slow enough to where you stay within the lines, and then once you come out the other side, you're good to go again. So it's essentially pit road speed, but there's no speed limits. However fast you can go to make that loop and stay inside the non-painted area, because they had green, white line, pavement, white line green. As long as you're going slow enough to stay inside the paved area and not cross over the white or the green, I say you shouldn't have to stop. But that's just me. I mean, it was far enough out that you would have to slow down to make the corner anyway and stay in there. So you can't go through there at 100 and some mile an hour. It was a sharp enough corner that you would have had to slow down to make it. I think that would have been enough penalty. I saw a few people stop, but and then again at the very end of the race, that the track limits kind of went out the window. I'm pretty sure they said something about that on the radio, which made you wonder what was the point of having them in the first place? Why not just make a beeline from the top of the S's to turn 6A?
Yeah,
I mean, if you're going to cut the course, just make it an oval. Be done with it. And make it a 45-degree angle turn in turn 1, and then a straight shot from turn 1 all the way down to 6A, and just call it turn 2 and turn 3, and then you've got the carousels down at the bottom of turn 20. Why not just make it a 6-turn track and be done with it?
Yeah, and I did like how they shortened the course up. I mean,
I like
the tall hairpin. The tall hairpin part of it was kind of pointless anyway, so it made a lot of sense.
Passing zone, but
yeah, it is, but it made it a lot more interesting, and to see if guys were going to use the bumper, when they were going to use the bumper, where they were going to pass.
Somebody to hit that tire barrier in 6B. I was really waiting for it. Shades of Sonoma.
Not a big fan of him, but like I always say, I'll give credit where it's due, and I will tell you that Kyle Busch did a tremendous job in this race.
He did,
and really redeemed himself as a driver. And it's just the tires went away, and he also stated that when him and Bell had a little bit of contact, the right rear actually bent. So it must have been the toe leg might have bent, and he did everything he could to hang on to it, and he still got fifth.
I think so. I think it was fourth. No, it would have been fifth actually.
So he still did a great job. And I was actually sitting there on the edge of my seat, curious to see if Bell would make contact with him again this year.
That would have been bad.
And he didn't. I mean, not intentional, and it was great to see the fact that Kyle actually respected that and said he did a great job. So it was great racing, man. I mean, for a second there, I thought Byron was going to get it, but
I was a little surprised that Byron didn't stick it in there, but at the same time, I know that Byron is no Austin Dillon, so I knew we weren't going to have that problem.
And
I was kind of happy about that one.
Tremendous improvement in racing from this year compared to previous years. So great job to NASCAR on that.
So that was my salute of the race. My blunder of the race goes to one Melon Man, Ross Chastain.
Oh gosh!
Lap 1, just absolutely overcooks it. Spins Chase Elliott before we can even essentially get to turn 1. Here's my thoughts. I got a photo with you at Bowman Gray. Now I want to know, where were you going? I just want to know where you were going. I guess I applaud you as a driver.
Oops!
I just want to know.
I turned my camera off.
Where were you trying to go? I mean, you knew you weren't going to make the corner that shallow. You knew that people in front of you were going to be turning. You went straight. That is not a straight turn. That is, in fact, a corner. You cannot go straight off there unless you want to end up in the sand trap. You are not Connor Zilisch. You are not going to make that corner through a crowd of people. You're not even Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch somehow split 3 cars and didn't end up in the sand trap when it was pouring down rain. You are not that guy. I hate saying it, but you are not Kurt Busch. You would never be able to pull that off with that many people in that corner. So that was my blunder of the race. I still am shocked that Chase didn't return the favor, because they raced together a pretty significant amount of the last few laps. I have Chase Elliott scored as 4th and Kyle Busch as 5th. So going from essentially dead last on lap 1 to finishing 4th, I was pretty impressed by that. But one of the things I noticed over the course of this past weekend is the Fords are great on super speedways, but that's it.
Not so
It's
great on road
actually
courses.
quite scary that they're good in qualifying and horrible in racing, which kind of started that way last year, except they were on the front row and a Chevy won. And now they're on
Well,
essentially
and
the front row, and a Toyota ended up winning the pole, which I'm wondering if that's going to change it. But I was
it's
kind of surprised by Ford's lack of showing up at a road course. I mean,
I mean,
to be fair, they didn't show up till very late in the season last year, but I was a little surprised that it takes them that long to, get the wheels moving. I mean, they're qualifying great, but the results
well,
are just not there.
the top Ford driver that you have was obviously Logano. Where was he at?
I have
You
to
didn't
look.
you didn't see or hear much about him.
You really didn't hear from any. I mean, you had Blaney at one point complaining on the radio. That was the extent of it. The highest finishing Ford was Chris Buescher in 7th. You have Chris Buescher. You got Noah Gregson in 8th. Todd Gilliland in 10th. Brad Keselowski in 15th. Ryan Blaney finished 19th. You got Cole Custer, Joey Logano, Austin Cindric, Josh Berry, Zane Smith, and Cody Ware, Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece, after the last few weeks he's had, he deserves to just finish a race on all fours. That's all that matters to me is that he finished on all fours. I mean, he still finished behind Kyle Larson, who essentially lost a wheel.
Now, I'm not one that likes to go back to previous topics, but I didn't get a chance to state my opinion about that whole ordeal. That you're not gonna suspend a driver for retaliating and right hooking somebody, but you're going to suspend a jack man and a tire man because the damn wheel fell off. It didn't cause any issues. Didn't even cause a yellow.
I actually don't even know if they ever got that thing off the track. How do you get that off the track with, put a safety vehicle out there and get it off the track? It rolled far enough out. When did they go get it? Did they wait till the end of the race to get it? Did it just sit there? I don't
I don't
remember
know.
seeing it unless they got it under a stage break.
I think it is complete. I think it's complete bullshit to suspend a crewman for that, but you're not going to suspend a driver for causing an accident intentionally and being a complete douche, in my opinion. What's that all about?
To an extent, I can kind of understand the suspension for Kyle Larson's crew. At the same time, like I was saying earlier, the punishment really doesn't fit the crime. Because, yes, they were going pretty fast. So either you're going to suspend them or you're not. If you didn't suspend Austin Cindric, don't suspend the crew members. I do think the 2-lap penalty, if you're going to suspend and fine the team, the 2-lap penalty really isn't necessary.
Absolutely not.
But at the same time, you cannot tell me that spinning somebody coming up the front stretch hill doesn't warrant a suspension. But yes, if you're going fast enough and you're going to penalize somebody for losing a wheel because it could come off and injure a fan or injure somebody outside the track, if you're going to suspend some people for that, but you're not going to suspend people for spitting each other out, essentially manipulating the race, it is a little lopsided. I do understand to an extent why the penalty is what it is, but at the same time, with those two circumstances, they deserve you the same consequences, or they don't need to happen.
A monetary fine and a 1-lap penalty, all in one, is a significant enough punishment for it happening once. If it happens again, then increase the penalty, another lap, and more money. As long as it doesn't cause a major accident or hurt anybody. But here's my opinion about NASCAR overkilling these penalties, about wheels falling off. And I don't care how anybody else feels about it. I don't care if NASCAR watching. But here's my opinion. They overkill these penalties to make the teams and the guys doing that job look like they just suck at it, or they didn't do it good enough to cover up the fact that their design just plain out sucks.
And
they know it. But they won't put any more effort into changing it or making it better or just changing it back.
And I want to say that I agree with the.
I mean, they think that their design and this whole thing is, top notch. It's the best. Blah blah blah. So they cover that up by screwing the teams over with these stupid suspensions and fines and stuff. Okay, I understand. Like I said, a fine and a lap penalty or a second, so some kind of time penalty, whatever, but not suspensions. It doesn't warrant suspensions.
Okay. Suspensions is where I'm on the fence about this. Why suspend the crew members when you could suspend the crew chief? He's the guy in charge of the crew members. If the crew member didn't get it done properly on purpose, that's one thing. But if you suspend the crew chief, it kind of hurts the team a little more than suspending 2 crew members to bring 2 new ones in.
Yeah,
I don't really know. I really know about that one.
But
when you lose a wheel on track, you're losing parts of your car on track. I can understand the safety risk. So yes, I understand the 2-lap penalty. If you're gonna penalize someone for losing parts on track, based on the road course, 2 laps does seem like a little bit of an overkill. But at the same time, don't penalize the 2 crew members. Penalize the guy who's in charge of the team and the 2 laps. Don't penalize the 2 guys that, one didn't secure the wheel and the other one didn't jack it up. That's going to be their reasoning.
Now, I can see if it is an ongoing problem throughout the race or throughout the season, like it was with Kyle Busch there for a while. I can understand a suspension later on. I get that.
Though. It's all teams.
I know, and I get that 100%. If it's constantly happening with the same team or the same guy, no matter what team he's on, if it's the same tire changer over and over again, and then I get a suspension because
I think Kyle Larson actually lost a tire last year. He was the first Hendrick Motorsports driver to have that, because it was shocking to me because Hendrick hadn't had one, and then I think Kyle lost one on track at Watkins Glen, maybe. I do remember Kyle Larson lost a tire somewhere, and it was the first time that you had ever seen it on a Hendrick Motorsports team. It wasn't Chase, it wasn't William Byron, it wasn't Bowman. I'm pretty sure it was Larson last year. So now that I think about it, it might be warranted, but at the same time, I'd have to go back and look and see. It wasn't this year at all. It was definitely last year. I think it was towards the beginning of the season, maybe a little bit. If I'm not mistaken, it was either Texas or Atlanta. I'm pretty sure it was Texas because it was a slower track. If I remember correctly, it was Texas. One of the 2 Texas races, he lost a tire on I believe it was under yellow flag conditions, which I think the penalty was different then, because it didn't roll up into traffic. It was under caution and kind of rolled down towards the inside wall, if I remember correctly. So I can understand it a little bit, but I don't know about that one.
Man. Yeah, I don't think it warrants a suspension, but that's just my opinion. I didn't mean to go on a rant about it, but and go back to topics because I hate going back to something we covered, but I never got a chance to talk about that because
I
we
couldn't even
moved on
remember
so
if we
quickly.
talked about Atlanta, so I was just kind of winging it. Atlanta still
But
has me fired up that they can't call cautions consistently. But funny enough, they didn't throw yellow at all this week for the end of the race, so I guess that's a good thing. We finished under
yeah.
green.
Wow, that's a change.
I know, right?
But Nathan, I think that's going to do it for this show tonight, and we will continue next week after this coming weekend. Hopefully, we don't get any bad weather and get rained out. So,
Cup Series is at Phoenix this week. I believe the race. Let's go look and see. I believe the race is at 3:15 or not 3:15. Race is at 3:30 this Sunday. That's the Cup Series. The Xfinity Series will be on track at 5 o'clock on Saturday, and the Truck Series is off until the 14th.
and everything at Talladega Short Track for the World of Outlaws you can catch on Dirt Vision this weekend. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and Facebook channels. And tell us what you think about any of the topics we covered in the comments below. So,
I think it's about time to wrap it up, Russ. We'll get ready for Phoenix this week and Talladega Short Track.
All right, so take it away, man.
Well, with Switchin Grooves, I'm Nathan Johns.
And I'm Russ Fritz saying race hard.
Stay safe.
And we'll see you there.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.